the U.S. continues to battle the COVID-19 pandemic. The NBA continuing its efforts to restart the league. Not sure exactly when or where or how that will take place. But our insider, Brian Windhorst, was on our program in the last hour talking about what may be coming next.
The reality is that not only when it comes back is there not going to be any fans, but there's a decent chance that they're going to have to look at centralizing teams. It is what the Chinese are doing with their league, and they're facing a 4-month delay to get it done. Over the weekend, the Premier League, there were reports out of England that the Premier League, the leading league in the world for soccer, is thinking about doing the exact same things in the Midlands in England, basically out in the rural areas. And I think this is what the NBA is going to have to seriously look at is centralized locations. LeBron shot down the concept of this idea last week. Other players that I have talked to don't like it, but it is what the reality is. The hard thing, the number one thing, is to get the players protected and to keep them healthy. And you can't travel to do it, and you've got to create like a tunnel for them to stay in. And that's why I think it's going to have to be, maybe not at one place, but it may be a couple centralized locations.
It's a really interesting thought, and there he is, the most interesting man in the world, Jalen Rose. And, Jalen, he referenced LeBron's comments, and obviously LeBron has such a loud voice when it comes to things like this. And LeBron said, and understandably, there's no way in the world he wants to be away from his family and the people that he loves during this unprecedentedly uneasy time. Everyone gets that. That said, if this is the only way to play an NBA season, it'll be an interesting push and pull. What would you think about the idea of taking all of the NBA players, basically putting them in 1 or 2 cities or someplace away from everyone else and trying to play out something of a season?
I like the NBA doing whatever it takes to get us basketball back out on the floor, completing the regular season as close as possible, and then getting us to the playoffs so we can ultimately see who's going to win the championship this year. And also for the league, Greeny, it's an actual chance to reset its calendar, and here's what I mean. If people had complaints about the NBA, they always felt like either they played too many games or the season was too long. Instead of starting in October, this is now a chance to start the season in November, if not earlier in December. I never liked the fact that free agency happened after the draft. I wish that was a reset. And also, I never liked the fact that you can buy out players when the trade deadline is already taking place. So these are a few things that the NBA has a chance to really reset. But I like what Wendy's saying. I understand LeBron's concern and a lot of other players' concern, but this is the new reality that we got to do something that we haven't done ever.
At least for the moment. I want to go back on both parts of that because it's not the first time we've heard someone suggest that maybe trying to play this into the summer, the NBA's new normal, whenever we emerge on the other side of this, being readjusting the calendar and playing the playoffs in the summer and the finals maybe in July or in August. Generally speaking, you would be in favor of that?
Absolutely. Basketball is a summer game. That's when we grow up playing outside at the park, in the backyard, in the YMCA. It takes place in the summer. So the fans will be just as excited for the finals to be in early June, in theory, as they probably would be in early August. It's the exact same thing, but it elongates the season, and it now gets the beginning of the season to create more enthusiasm because you're not going against the midpoint of the NFL when you start in early October. I love this for the NBA. Reset the calendar. This is a perfect opportunity to start doing that going forward.
It's a good and interesting discussion. The other piece of it, of course, is, again, the idea of bubble cities. Brian Windhorst told us that the Chinese league, they have 20 teams. They're playing all of the games in 2 cities. They have basically two cities, and they're all playing their games in one or the other, and they basically keep those players isolated from practically everybody else. You think at the end of the day the NBA players would be willing to do that?
I think so. And here's what makes this unique. Unlike baseball, their players haven't gotten their checks because the season hasn't started. The NBA players have gotten the lion's share of their pay. So really, it will be asking teams that aren't going to the playoffs to finish off the regular season so you can get the local television money. That's around 70 games. And then you're asking the players who earned the right to be in the playoffs to actually go into the playoffs and compete for an NBA championship. That is something I think each of the players would understand that this is a unique circumstance and would be willing to do.
All right, we'll see if that is where it winds up going. Meanwhile, I wanted to end it with a smile. I want everyone to feast their eyes and, Jalen, get your read on the big fella, Damian Woody, and his TikTok from the weekend. Let's take a look. Jalen, what do you think?
D Wood up to no good. I see you exercising them corns, big fella. Spending some family time. Getting it in. They going real slow so you can keep up. But I ain't mad at it at all. I am not mad at it at all. That guy is just so warm, so fuzzy, so loving. Unlike the guy that my Detroit Lions gave a big all-season contract to, and then in the off-season, he punches one of his teammates in the helmet and hurts his hand before he even plays a game for my squad. The same squad, Greeny, that has Tua right there. Right there. You talking about Miami. You talking about all these teams that need a franchise quarterback. What about the Detroit Lions? Do you know some of the quarterbacks that I've watched over the history of my life?
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford is the greatest quarterback along with Bobby Lane in the history of the franchise. And Tua's right there. It's great to see D. Will living his best life.
That was everything I was hoping it would be and much more. Jalen, hugs to you and Molly. Thank you very much, my man. I will see you as soon as possible. Meanwhile, from 64 to 2, today in the noon East, get up with us, 8 a.m. Eastern tomorrow here on ESPN. Meanwhile, Graziano, Hembo has called you out. Here's this morning's question. Who is Nick Saban's highest drafted quarterback as a collegiate head coach?
So a couple things here. One, I want it known that I got the last hour's question right. North Carolina is the most Final Four teams. Hembo can verify that. I texted him with that answer. So I am 1-0 off camera. On camera, I know he's sneaky. I think that Jamarcus Russell was recruited by Nick Saban at LSU and may have played for him there early in his career. So since I don't have a better guess, I'm going to say Jamarcus Russell, who was number 1 overall.
That's an excellent guess. It isn't correct, but I like the thinking. The correct answer is Tony Banks.
Who went higher than a 1?
Tony Banks, who played under Saban at Michigan State and was drafted 42nd overall. That's really the point here, that Saban has never had a quarterback drafted higher than that. That, of course, is going to change by the end of April, which leads us to the biggest storyline of the NFL draft, Tua Tagovailoa and where he will get selected. In Mel Kiper's latest mock draft, Tua was projected to go number 5 to the Dolphins. But will he be available at number 5, or do the Dolphins need to make a move? Once and for all, let's take a closer look at this, because Orlovsky sort of wants to get up on almost a little miniature soapbox here and try and make his case as to how he sees this thing playing out. Orlovsky, I will give you the floor.
Yeah, Greeny, and maybe Graziano can fill in some blanks here when I'm done, but I think the Dolphins will have to and definitely will move up to go get Tua Tagovailoa. Number 1, this is the organization that, 12 or 13 years ago passed on the opportunity to bring in Drew Brees because of fear of injury. And ever since that decision, they've been trying to find their Drew Brees. Number 2, last year they traded away Minkah Fitzpatrick for a first-round pick and Laramie Tunsil for a first-round pick. They did not trade away good players to just go acquire other good players. They traded away those good players to acquire draft picks to make sure they were equipped to go get the player that they wanted to go get this year. And then number 3, imagine this world where they sit back this year and take 3 of their 3 first-round picks, and someone jumps them to go get Tua. And with those 3 picks, they go on to win, 7 or 8 games next year. Then next draft, they'll be going into year 3 of a rebuild without a quarterback and asking the same question they are this year. Who is going to be our franchise quarterback? For those 3 reasons, Greeny, I don't think there's any chance that the Dolphins are going to sit there at 5 and hope that Tua falls to them. They will go get Tua.
I like it. Graziano, what do you think?
Well, there's a lot of things at work here, Greeny. And number 1, I think in the Dolphins' best case scenario, they would trade up to number 1 with the Bengals and take Joe Burrow. I just don't think the Bengals are going to move that pick no matter what the Dolphins offer them, so they have to figure out what else they can do. I think you may have to go from 5 to 3 if you're the Dolphins to get the quarterback of your choice. I think the mystery is Tua Tagovailoa that quarterback for the Miami Dolphins? Because coming out of the Combine, there were teams that had significant medical questions left over about Tua. Not just how is his hip healing, but what is his long-term durability because of that injury, because of some other injuries he's had. If the Dolphins were that kind of team, if they were one of those teams that had that kind of question, and I'm not sure 100% if they were. But if they were, they have to evaluate what do they need to do. Do you want to move up? Do you want to use multiple first-round picks to go from 5 to 3 to take a quarterback that you're not sure is going to be healthy enough to be your long-term answer? Do you stay put and look at someone like Justin Herbert or Jordan Love? Remember, the Dolphins tried to have Tua in for a visit, but they weren't able to get it together before the league decided to shut down all pre-draft visits.
Yeah, Laura has suggested in her reporting on this, and again, she's as tied into the medicals as anyone, that the Dolphins are a team that seems to be interested, but that doesn't necessarily mean they feel comfortable with all of the medicals as they stand. Marcus, what do you think?
Look, we're dealing with probabilities here, and that's the issue. Obviously, we use the Breeze in context. Dr. Andrews did the surgery, said the shoulder was fine with Drew Brees, and, you know, the rest is history. With Tua, different situation, man, because, look, here's the caveat. You're drafting Tua for the next 10, 15, maybe 20 years to play this position. What is his availability going to be like? That's the question that all of these teams are trying to answer. It's not about going up and drafting to a number at the 2 spot or the 3 spot. It's long term in our organization. We are going to make a decision for a quarterback that we want to carry our franchise and usher him into a new era. That's the decision. It's easy to go up and say, hey, let's go take Tua at number 3. But you're weighing the future of the franchise for a long time if you draft Tua and his durability is still in question. That's the issue that teams are having. The talent, his ability is no question you go up and get him. But is that going to carry over to what we're trying to do as an organization long term?
Yeah, this is why it's the most interesting question of the league, because Orlovsky, every point you made at the beginning was exactly right. The flip side of it is, if you give up everything that you have earned for this guy and he doesn't stay healthy, then you have set yourself back terribly. We're all going to find out because